Hello dear friends, Vanda here. In this video we're talking about Masdevallia, an orchid genus from South and Central America. They are found, or rather distributed, from the south of Mexico all the way down to the south of Brazil. When you hear these countries, Mexico, Brazil, that already sounds like summer holiday warmth. That's right, beach vibes, but that's quite far from the truth. Masdevallias like it cool, because they grow in the cooler cloud forests of South and Central America and are found there up to altitudes of 2,000 meters. And that's actually really important. Instructions on how to cultivate these plants. Much cooler than, for example, phalaenopsis or Vanda or Ascocentrum. Masdevallia also prefer to be quite a bit more humid than, for example, phalaenopsis. And that's why I thought, yes, perfect for cultivation in Colomi, although that doesn't mean that Colomi is such a humid substrate, because it's a zeolite that has been treated with polluants, meaning it has been coated so that the surface is dry and the water is stored in the substrate. And that's why I thought to myself, I recently bought some colorful drinking glasses, and then I had the idea. It was practical because when I saw the glasses, I simultaneously had the idea that I could plant some nice Masdevallia in them. That's why I did it, and now I'll quickly tell you which species I bought. So this here is Masdevallia tovarensis. Then I have here a noticeably larger one in comparison. Masdevallia, and this is Masdevallia ignea. Then I also have a Masdevallia bariliana, which has pink flowers. And then I also decided on a Masdevallia coccinea. And this is also a plant that grows quite large compared to the other plants. That means it's going to be very interesting how they will actually develop in Colomi. I'm really excited. I've had this idea for at least a year, no joke. And that's why I thought now it's time to just put it into action. Masdevallia are actually very easy to cultivate. When I started with the topic, I had planted some plants, like this one, in coconut substrate. But I also had some plants. They grew in sphagnum moss. Both worked well, although the sphagnum moss variant was the better one, at least back then. Now it gets exciting with Colomi. And moss is actually self-explanatory. A lot of moss grows in cloud forests. That's why that fits quite well with Masdevallia. Masdevallia usually grow epiphytic. That means they grow as sitters on trees, but they can also grow and occur lithophytically, meaning on mineral soil. So I would say mineral soil is great. Colomi is a zeolite mineral, and that's why we're planting the plant in Colomi. First of all, we will free the plants from the substrate. That is, we take the Masdevallia ignea and just free them from the substrate. And we can already see here, these have been cultivated in sphagnum moss. That obviously has to go. The majority of the organic material present here is what we can also observe. The roots that are here are not good anymore. That means a small point of criticism here, I ordered the plants fresh. Extra for this video. That's why the old roots that are damaged here are a bit of a shame. But that doesn't matter now. When repotting, I would recommend that you just remove these old sheaths. The velamen, because that's going to rot anyway. And these stable threads in the roots, they still provide support for the whole thing later on. And they rot relatively slowly. But what we can also see, here come some new roots. That means it practically promotes what we are planning. Now, of course, you could also rinse the whole thing underwater. That everything is really gone, that we have removed everything, but I'll skip this step. On the contrary, I'm just removing all of that, which would probably be washed away anyway. And then that should be fine. That means here's still the old parts away. And now I'm choosing a glass. It can definitely be colorful. That's why I have these colorful glasses here. And what's important now is we definitely need to make sure that there are a few roots here at the bottom. If it's like this with this plant, that we practically have no roots reaching down to the bottom, we will place this plant all the way down first. Sooner or later, the orchid will naturally grow the roots, and then you can always pull it up a little bit piece by piece and fill it in with fresh substrate. Or when you realize everything is rooted down there, you simply pull the plant out of the container, pour the substrate into another container and replant everything fresh. That's the huge advantage of Colomi. I'm taking this here, some white Colomi. Make sure there are roots down here and just fill it in. It just needs to be sprinkled in. Now you need to grasp the whole thing a bit. You can shake it a little, that doesn't really harm anything. And then you just do the same from the other side and you're basically done. Now basically the whole plant is already planted. Now of course it's still a bit wobbly in there. You can definitely pile it up a bit higher. That doesn't harm it at all. And now it's all set up properly. Optimal. So the first plant, the Masdevallia ignea, is planted. And now we're basically going from plant to plant and going through the whole process. This one here. Is it really well rooted compared to the other plant? That means we won't have any problems here at all. Regarding planting in Colomi, in fact, we didn't have any problems with the other plant either. Here we're just getting rid of the rough stuff. I'll show you in future videos that the initial setup is completely sufficient on its own. If there's a bit of moss in between the plants, that wouldn't matter. That would just be the way. Just settle it in the glass. So, now the roughest and most difficult part is done. These are probably 2 plants here as well. Could you theoretically just snip it here or pull it apart? Then you would already have 2 plants. Let's see, maybe I'll do that someday. Maybe I'll do that now. So, now we have 2 plants here. You saw it, just pull it apart. That means 2 tovarensis. Or tovarensis. Now the orchids are prepared here. We see the lighter shoot here, that's the front shoot. We need to pay attention to that when we plant the whole thing. Let's do a quick check again to make sure there's no bark left anywhere. And then we take a glass, any glass. Let's take the red one. Now we see we're already getting the roots all the way down very easily. That means we can actually plant this plant significantly. Plant it higher. I think you can see how it shines through the glass, and the same method as before. And then you just take the Colomi, keeps the orchid practically at that height. It can definitely be a bit higher. Not that the roots are all the way down, because the Colomi naturally pushes them a bit down. Then you have to turn the whole thing over. Ensures that the plant stands somewhat straight. Shake it a bit more. You can also do that behind the plant. You have to be a bit careful with the finger on me. You don't have to press too hard. And then you fill it again. Oh, layer. On. And then this tovarensis is practically planted. And since I have a second plant now, we can easily do the same thing again. In the yellow glass, here you can also see how long the roots already are. They practically reach down to the bottom. That means the plant can be placed a bit higher. Then you hold it steady. And pour the Colomi in. What you can do with the Masdevallia, because it likes to sprout out to the left and right and everywhere on the sides, that you place the plant practically in the center of the glass. And then fill in the substrate accordingly. Shake it a bit straight. And just like that, now, the third plant is planted. Overall, I ordered 4. That's why we're moving on to the next plant now. This is the Barliana. The Barliana has pink flowers. Now you think about what would fit well there. Maybe something orange? Come on, let's take the purple glass. Purple and pink actually look quite nice. And here we see there are already some nice new roots that have formed or are present, and that's why we're removing the bulk of it. It also looks like there are two plants here again. Now we're going to do it this way. We're not going to keep the plants together, but now we're going to do something that practically ensures that more shoots will come. We're taking the plant apart. That means we're just going to break it apart. You saw it, how it works. And then we have a front shoot on this one plant that goes in this direction. And then we turn the other broken plant around so that we have a front shoot going in the other direction. And then we can plant them like this, that it really becomes nice and bushy in the end. And I hope we'll see that in the next few weeks as well. You can see it here too. The roots fit in really well. So there's still a root here, but it's not in very good shape. We're just going to stick this in the glass now. Hold it again. Make sure it's nice and firm in the middle and fill it up with Colomi. Now let's do the whole thing again from the other side. Here are a few dried parts that we can remove. And now we fill it all up with Colomi. We just need to be careful. This is a piece that goes with this one. A small root has already broken off. That means I'm just going to place it here. It's not that bad. We'll take root, and I'm filling it up now. And that's it for the tovarensis. No, that was the Baleana, excuse me. Tovarensis. We already had that, so now that has already happened in this case. So now we come to the Masdevallia, coccinea. Sounds like a red bloom and should work out pretty well. And we can see here how many big, great roots there are. We have, and that's why we're freeing them from all the pine bark and moss components. So that should actually fit. Here's another old plant part. You can see beautiful new root tips here. Of course, they look completely different than, for example, a phalaenopsis or a Vanda, because here the roots are completely white and don't really differ from the roots of other orchids. But since the plants grow so that the roots really either grow in the moss or in the substrate, they look completely different. Now we're taking the green glass in this case, and I had already thought back then, this plant is actually going to get really big. So if you know Masdevallia coccinea, you know that they can actually become really large plants. That's why this glass will probably become relatively small sooner or later. But that's okay, because at the moment it's definitely still working. And then we just fill the whole thing with Colomi up. The advantage of Colomi is this can actually be processed so well that you don't have to stuff it in here. Now I'm glad that it actually almost was enough. We're almost done, but I still have some leftover. Leftover white fine Colomi. And I'm just going to work on that now. I was thinking, with the colorful little glasses, it's actually quite nice. When you put the white Colomi in, of course you could have also used colored Colomi, and we're already done with our orchids. With our Masdevallias from South and Central America that prefer it a bit cooler and more humid. So that was it. So basically that's it. In terms of materials, I basically only used this one bag of Colomi. The little bit left in the old bag, I think we can overlook that. And I think basically you all got it. Now, after planting in Colomi, you should definitely water the plants. That's important for the Masdevallia because she likes it. Yes, a significantly higher humidity due to its origin in the cloud forests of South and Central America, unlike other orchids where the root system may have been damaged. You should just go ahead and pour a little water in here. I think basically you all got it, how to do it when planting. That means if you have a plant like this coccinea, which has a lot of roots, then you can plant it quite high up, and then it all fits together quite well. And then you just need to fill it up with Colomi. It was different here with the very first one, the Masdevallia ignea. It had almost no roots. That means plants that practically have hardly any roots, you definitely plant it much deeper in the container. Then you fill it up so well that the plant stands stable, and when it has developed more roots, you can, because of that, Colomi, so you can just gently pull the plant out a bit and then fill it up again with Colomi, like it was here with the ignea. Then I had the tovarensis here. It's important with the Masdevallia, as I mentioned, because they like to produce new shoots on the left and right. It's best to plant the plant in the middle. With this plant here, it was like this on the side. It didn't have many new shoots, but it had a really strong front shoot. That's why I placed it here on the side. With the old shoots, where of course new shoots can also form, and so the front shoots, the more they develop forward, the more space they have. Exactly. And then the Baleare. I did it by placing it with, I set it here with this piece. The tolerances then, I planted it in its own glass, then of course also centrally. You have to see how it develops with such a large plant. They can of course break, and then you can plant them in opposite directions so that one shoot goes in one direction. The other shoot goes in this other direction is really nice. Masdevallia is basically, you can really divide it a lot, so it produces a lot of shoots. But I'll show you that in future videos. If you have any more questions about the topic, culture and care of Masdevallia, just write them in the comments. Feel free to leave a comment. Otherwise, give a thumbs up until the next video with Colomi or another substrate. Questions as always, drop them in, subscribe to the channel, recommend it, and